No, not belong to him, but the person makes a choice when he goes in. If he says, wow, that's really radical, I'll vote for them instead of the partly radical.
Well, you said stolen votes, so.
Okay, that's time, sir.
Well,
Do we have any
whatever.
more questions for?
For Mr. Robertson, you were talking about tax, how it's disproportionate, that the lower income demographic is paying a higher proportion of taxes. Would you support a homestead exemption in the New Hampshire property taxes, in which if your property values are at or below a certain amount, let's say $100,000, then you don't pay taxes on that amount?
I don't think under the present Constitution you can tax people at different rates. One of the things we need is a constitutional amendment that'll let us tax people differently. I'm not, how do you determine a person needs, whatever you talked about, a homestead exemption?
Right.
If I'm Bill Gates and I move to Roxbury and live in a tent, do I get a homestead exemption for my 100 acres?
Well, in the States, how it works is, let's say you have a property value at $100,000. If the exemption is at $100,000, then you're not paying any taxes. So if your property is $150,000, you're paying tax on $50,000. So it helps so that the poorest people still have a place to live, don't have to pay taxes on it, yet if you want to have a super large house, you're paying for the luxury of the larger property.
But if I choose not to live in a rich house, even though I'm rich, I pay less taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I claim New Hampshire as my residence, even though I spend 6 months in Florida or 5 months and 29 days, you know, and live in a fancy house. I believe you should pay taxes based on your ability to pay, not on what you use. If I run a big factory in the city of Keene and I got 500 employees with 1,000 kids, they all go to school. Why shouldn't I care about them? I'm the cause that they're here.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
That's time, please.
Oh,
We have time for one more question for Mr. Robertson.
That was his third.
Was it his third?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. So now we get our 60-second closing statement.
Who goes first?
I believe that Keith will go, or no, Mr. Robertson will go first. Sorry.
I think I gave a pretty good cross-section when I stood up. I've been a community activist all my life. I grew up in a good Republican home. I was Jim Cleveland, the last real Republican at the congressional level. I carried Keene by more than he carried the 2nd District. He spent every weekend at home in New London. His widow is now a Democrat. I think the only governor we've had who showed really leadership was Walter Peterson. His widow is now a Democrat. The Republican Party that existed when I was young in New Hampshire was liberal to moderate. It is no longer the Republican Party I grew up with. It's owned by billionaires and they're only interested in filling their pockets. And that's not what community is all about. I should be worried as a New Hampshire resident about what goes on in Berlin, what goes on in Pittsburgh, and are those kids getting an adequate education? Not
That's
just
fine,
in the
sir.
kids in Keene.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. If you want to improve the economy in New Hampshire, if you want to increase jobs, cut your local property taxes and your rent. If you rent, I'll cut that because your property taxes will be cut for everyone. If you would like to lower your utility cost, I have a plan to lower utility cost by getting New Hampshire out of the program we're in right now. Right now, apparently $50 a year is what's asked for. So if you have a power company in New Hampshire, if you use electricity, Public Service in New Hampshire is asked to increase your fees by $50 a year. I would make sure that doesn't happen because they said they're increasing the fees because of the regional greenhouse initiative that some states are already looking or have already pulled out of. So apparently this program didn't work and it increases your fees. If you want to lower your property taxes, I'd recommend you vote for me. Also, if you should at least consider voting for question 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, next up we have Ian Freeman and Chuck Wheat for State Representative Cheshire 16.